Alright everyone, it's time for the Occult video number 351. David Berkowitz, the son of Sam. It is his birthday after all, the 1st of June, so we'll be talking a little bit about the .44 caliber killer, which is the original moniker prior to Son of Sam. Seems to have fallen a little bit into disuse. Berkowitz is often rumored to have been involved with cult activity. I'll get to that separately, of course. His original claim that he was effectively possessed, his neighbor's dog was talking to him and actually wanted to drink the blood of young girls, young women, and this was feeding Satan, I suppose, is discredited in the sense of demonology. The idea of him being involved in a cult, however, is not quite discredited. People pretend as though it's a closed case. Oh no, Berkowitz acted alone. There's nothing to see here. It really, if you look at some of the ins and outs of the case, that appears to be inconsistent with what actually happened. Like, for instance, Berkowitz not being physically there for several of the shootings at the time that they actually occurred would have been near impossible. The fact that they were conflicting witness accounts of the shooter doesn't really help. And there is actually, by the way, a still ongoing open investigation into this topic. That is that these killings happened in the 1970s. We're many decades later now. Berkowitz is an old dude at this point. Again, happy birthday to the son of Sam, I suppose. The police are technically still investigating, evidence to try to figure out if there were accomplices. He has claimed consistently for many, many years that that's the case. He has recanted some elements of what he initially said and has come out and said, for instance, the media was the one that claimed that the dog was talking to him, that his neighbor's dog Sam was attempting to get him to kill people. He has clarified that that was a media fabrication. I'm not 100% sure whether that's the case either. Here's my reading of Berkowitz at large. As an individual, of course, he shot quite some number of people in the New York area, killed, I think 5 individuals died, others were injured, in some cases by debris and so forth. Using a .44 caliber weapon tends to have more impact than the 9mm that Joe Biden hates so much. Doesn't know much about these things. I do not believe that David Berkowitz was possessed in any sense, in any way, shape, or form, by anything other than a sick psychology, which was partially inflicted upon him. He had a shock when he learned that he had been adopted. He was effectively abandoned by his father. It was at that particular moment that he began acting out. I think we can put 2 and 2 together here and chalk it up to psychology. But here's where it gets more muddy. I have spoken many, many times about the importance of understanding the ramifications of the Satanic Panic. The Satanic Panic is the idea, mainly popularized in the 1980s by the talk show circuit, by people like idiots like Geraldo Rivera, etc., that there were cults all over the country. And they were mutilating animals and sacrificing children, and their heavy involvement in the drugs and rock and roll, of course, because Soccer Mom America really liked to tune in and hear Geraldo on the radio talking about these things. There was totally no grift at all, no money involved. And I've warned people that the vast majority of cases tied in with the Satanic Panic, you're not looking at genuine cult activity, or in some cases any activity at all. And in other cases, you're looking at edgelords, effectively. But the son of Sam was in the 1970s. This is effectively pre-Satanic Panic or proto-Satanic Panic. When Berkowitz claims, and the FBI and police can corroborate that there were conflicting accounts of the kind of people that were actually involved or nearby and acting sketchy at the times of these shootings, it does corroborate the concept that he was part of a genuine cult. I'm saying this as someone who is Satanic Panic skeptic, former Satanist myself. Yes, it appears that Berkowitz was probably influenced by other people. I can't imagine that simply learning that you're adopted and having a few problems in your fiscal life causes you to haul off and do and say the things that Berkowitz did. Now, of course, in the 1980s, he converted. He's been an evangelical now for a number of years. The self-aggrandizement and the self-serving part of Berkowitz is entirely separate. I'll focus on the cult issue separately. When we look at what Berkowitz has done then and now, it looks like a man who simply wants to get out of prison. It's entirely self-serving. From the conversion, which may or may not be fucking authentic at all, to the con man, there was the DC shooter, I believe, was active, and he penned a letter saying to stop it and stop hurting people, talking about how now he's the son of hope and so forth, actually penning some material for books, although they've literally had federal court rulings just because of that. They were worried he would make a lot of money selling a book deal, so they made sure that criminals were unable to actually get money from book deals and things like that, and I personally hold that to be unconstitutional, even though it is technically pragmatic. That being said, the fact that he's effectively a con man, that his original story of possession is horseshit. He was not possessed by the devil. There is no actual demon called Samhain, which is what he termed it. That feeds right into my belief that he was actually involved in cult behavior. I'll tell you what I think happened. Berkowitz, he's going through his early years, his young adulthood, proto-young adult at that time. He has the shock of his life. He feels completely neglected, completely cut off from everything. He's not really part of he's withdrawn. He meets the other edgy kids that 70s rock. They're listening to Coven or something like that. And they have a topical understanding of the basic premise of occultism. They read Cavendish work, in other words. So they hear this term Samhain, and it's really just a holiday. It's not the name of an entity or an energy or any member of any known pantheon or anything. It's not an entity. It's literally just a pagan holiday. They're dabbling with spinning records backwards and doing incantations and doing the hoodoo voodoo horse shit that was very popular among kids at the time. That really starts with Ouija boards and stuff way, way before then. People were doing that in the Victorian era, only they understood you shouldn't, listen to your neighbor's dog and go shoot people under the influence of a Ouija board. So they're doing the Ouija board and crystal thing, and this term comes up, and Berkowitz, who is not apparently a highly intelligent individual, latches onto the term. He happens to like it, and he spins it into an elaborate psychodrama. He is effectively psychologically projecting while he's killing a bunch of people in retaliation for his own familial troubles. I don't think that there's any doubt that that's the psychological case, but there were probably other people involved. As far as I know, there was never any recovery of literature that would have familiarized him with what was then is the 1970s. There's no internet and so forth. What would cause him to recognize a term like Samhain at all, and some of these other sort of sorcerous concepts that he dabbled in. I'm wondering where he would have gotten the idea if it weren't for another group of people. Now, when we use the term cult, that does not mean devil worshippers. If they're venerating a demon called Samhain, it's not a demon. It's the term for a pagan celebration, which has nothing to do with Christianity or with devil worship in general. It's that confusion of terms that leads me to believe that there were probably 2 or more other edgelords that were aiding and abetting him, and they're still on the loose. And based on, Berkowitz's age, they could still be alive and out there. So, yeah, happy birthday, a positive message there. Maybe they found Jesus or something like that. They don't seem to have killed any further people when Berkowitz was arrested, of course, unless they were literally insane, as many people who pretend to worship the devil actually are. Richard Ramirez comes to mind. I'll talk about him some other time. Maybe Jack Parsons, not a devil worshipper, but falls into the same bizarre category in some ways. They would stop involving themselves with their criminal activity because their friend just got arrested. And if he rats them out, they're screwed, but as long as he stays silent, and he hasn't given up actual names in general. There was some dabbling with Scientology with one person that he was directly associated with. Behold, that lead was never followed up with. Scientology has deep pockets and certain influence in parts of the country. New York is one of them. San Francisco and Los Angeles, big ones as well. Wonder why all those kids disappear in these particular areas and are never seen or heard from again, and nobody wants to look into it. Scientology is a cult. I believe that there is a high degree of likelihood that he was genuinely involved with a cult. A topical examination of some of the inconsistencies in the case lead me to believe that. But he was not a devil worshipper. He can claim retroactively, I was possessed, demons were talking to me, and now I found Jesus. That is a typical prison con. The problem is he has the possibility of parole. It's unlikely to ever be granted, even if he acts, as by all accounts he is, a model prisoner. He's doing the ministry thing and helping people. Help is a relative term, I suppose, but he's hoping to get out of prison. He could still live another 20, 30 years. He doesn't want to stay behind bars for that. He fucked up as a young kid, effectively a young adult. He's not very old at the time of the killings. Psychological trauma and so forth. He sobers up at some point, realizes he's ruined his life, and now he wants to piece something back together. If he gets paroled and goes to the right state, he can also sell the publishing rights to his life story and become a millionaire. Of course he wants to get out. It'll be like hitting the lottery if that occurs. So, cult? Yeah, probably. Or edgelords pretending to be cult-like and demonic and so forth. Actual devil worshipper or any branch of Satanist or occultist? No, absolutely not. There's no apparent familiarity with any authentic, legitimate occultism actually in David Berkowitz's entire life. That's about all. Peace out.